Hi, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. As you can see by the title, this is going to be my worst books of the year. Now, obviously, every month when I set out to make a TBR, I am picking books that I am hoping I will love, with very, very few exceptions. That is sometimes for the Never Say Never series. I might pick up a book that I know I'm gonna hate, but I figure I'll try it anyways because it might surprise me. Or if there is a themed reading vlog where, again, some books I'm like not sure if I'm gonna love them. But most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, I'm hoping that I love everything I read. And unfortunately, these books didn't make the cut. I don't think it's fair to fully include DNFs because I haven't read all the way to the end of the book, so I don't know if it is in fact one of the worst books I've ever read. However, I'm going to add some DNFs here as honorable mentions. Earlier this year, I got an arc of A Dark and Drowning Tide on NetGalley, which I am super thankful for, and unfortunately for me, I DNF'd this one at about 77% of the way through. I could have probably pushed through and finished it, but I was just genuinely so bored. I don't think there was anything inherently wrong with this book, but it was like just trying to do too much. There were a lot of different plot things going on at the same time, but simultaneously somehow nothing was happening, and I just felt like very underwhelmed. I wasn't rooting for the characters, the plot wasn't hooking me, and I just didn't care. This is also sort of the case for Feybound by Sarah El Arifi. I wanted to love this so badly, and I think that the book itself, like, I think it's fine. I DNF'd this at about 55% of the way through. I just like wasn't really rooting for anyone, and unfortunately, like, I could already see where their plot was going from about like 20% in. I was like, I already know what's gonna happen. Like, I wasn't enraptured enough with the rest of the plot and the characters to like really continue. Again, it was just fine. There was nothing really wrong with it. It just wasn't for me. I also DNF'd Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. I had read book 1 and I thought it was good. It had potential. I think it had a really strong opening and lost me in the second half, but I gave it like a 3.5, and I was really hopeful that Sunbringer would kind of like pull it together and be as interesting as the first half of book 1 was. But unfortunately, Sunbringer was just like more of the same. Like, it felt like the exact same story, just told like again in a different way. Like, it didn't even feel like a different book. It didn't feel like a continuation, and I was just genuinely so bored. I don't even know. I think I DNF'd this one at like 70% of the way through. This, like, again, like, I've tried. I pushed myself. I got like really far in the book, and I was just genuinely so bored. And yeah, didn't love it. It was very boring. I don't even remember anything that happened in it, to be perfectly honest with you. Another book that I got very far into, I think I got to about 82% of the way through, Lore of the Wilds by Annalise Abrana. However, like, this book just made like no sense. On paper, like, the premise and the like concept on paper like should have been perfect for me, and I wanted to love this so badly. You have no idea how hard I like tried to convince myself that I was enjoying it, until like finally it just like clicked, where I was just like, I have to be honest with myself that I'm just not liking it at all. There are like, from one paragraph to another paragraph, there was like a time skip of like 8 months, and it's just like they don't even mention it. Like, you kind of just have to like put it together with context clues, and it's like, that would have been nice to like have some idea of what you were doing here. The plot also just kind of like didn't really make a lot of sense. And I thought that the main character, like, I wanted to like Lore so badly, but I don't know. She just kind of was like, I'm not like other girls, but like also like pretending that she wasn't that way. Like, it was hard to explain. And there's like 2 love interests. There's barely any romance up until the point where like I stopped reading, but apparently by the end of the book there's a love triangle, and it's like up to the point where I was reading, like, she was just like maybe having a crush on one of the love interests, and the second interest like had just been introduced. So for a love triangle to be crammed into that small ending of the book, like, I'm glad I didn't force myself to read it the rest of that, because I would have wanted to hit my head against a wall. Another book that I DNF'd like quite literally 10 pages in is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I was so excited for this book because the dedication is No Body, No Crime by Taylor Swift. Like, I'm literally wearing a Taylor Swift sweatshirt right now. I like, you did not need to tell me anything else except No Body, No Crime, Taylor Swift. And I was so excited. And then we get into it, and it's just like all this crazy, stupid boring, unnecessary backstory for like 10 pages straight. And I was like, I just don't give a fuck about this character. I don't give a fuck about this mystery. Like, I just don't care at all. And my friend Danny read this book till the end, and I literally told her, I was like, I need you to just tell me the entire plot and like just spoil it for me. And she told me everything that happened, and I was like, that's literally so fucking stupid, and it's so predictable, because like it literally is the plot of No Body No Crime by Taylor Swift, like with no like nuance. There was like a stupid like supernatural element that was added, and like it didn't like matter, and it was so dumb. And I'm really glad that I did not force myself to continue that. The best DNF I've probably made this year, to be honest. And another book I DNF'd, which I will like consider, this is the first of my worst books of 2024, is Zodiac Academy, the first one, The Awakening, I think it's called. Talk about stupid fucking writing, plot, characters, magic, world building. First of all, it was like all shit that we've seen before. Like nothing felt original. It just felt like somebody put a bunch of stories in a blender, hit the button a couple times and spit it out, and they're like, this is good enough. The two main characters are like the dumbest bitches I've ever met in my life. There's like, it's supposed to be like bully romances, but like they're not even bully. Like there's a fine line between like bullying someone and like literally sexually assaulting them. And like that line was crossed, and it was just god awful writing. The authors, by the way, there's two brains put this together. The authors just made really dumb mistakes in their world building, where the two main characters were supposed to be from like Chicago or something, and they called a vacuum a Hoover. And it's like, in America, like we call them vacuums. There's a brand of vacuum that we have called Hoover, but in like the UK, they say like, oh, I need to Hoover the floor. Whereas in America, we're like, oh, I need to vacuum the floor. And it was just like a lot of stupid mistakes like that pulled me out of the story, because I'm like, I know that these characters are like supposed to be from Chicago, and they're very much not giving like American. It was just like a lot of dumb things. And yeah, I have an entire video where I tried to read it, so I'll link it in the card and down below if you're interested in watching me suffer. I do read out some quotes, and when I tell you, they're interesting. I can't believe that a lot of those things I had to say out loud. Let's just put it that way. Another book that I'm going to put on my worst books of the year list is, unfortunately, Their Eyes Were Watching God. I honestly just think that this was a me problem, because I read this book and like I'm genuine, I like don't know what I read. I don't really know what happened. I think there might have been a hurricane at some point. I think the concept of this book like went over my head, and that is a me problem. I feel like this is a classic and it's beloved by a lot of people, and I'm sure that it is great. I just could not grasp what was happening, and I think that I should have probably read it physically. I had listened to it on audio, and I don't think that was the way to go for me, unfortunately. Another book I'm going to put on my worst books of the year list is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. I just want Sarah to answer one question, and that question is, what the fuck did you even write? Because I don't really know. This book had a lot of leveling up, a lot of really bad corny jokes, a lot of like men just like getting erections for no reason, inappropriate times. There were also like, the climax of the book was also there were like two climaxes. It was very weird. The plot structure was very, very odd. The flow like made no sense. The plot like felt really rushed, but also like took forever. And the only reason I didn't give this book a 1 star was because of Lydia. Lydia is the best character in this series by far. But this book was overall terrible. And honestly, I don't know if there's gonna be another book in the series, but this book made me want to DNF Crescent City entirely. So that's something I need to think about if she does announce another one, because I don't know if I want to read more of that baloney. The next worst book of 2024 is A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faizal. I wanted to love this so badly. When I tell you, like the first like 20%, I was so excited. I was ready. I was there. We were on the same page. And then the internal monologues began. Oh my God, he's so sexy. Every single person's inner thoughts were, oh my God, they're so hot. Oh my God, they're so hot. Wow, they're so hot. Oh my God, they're so hot. Like, can we think about something other than people's appearances? And not to mention, this plot was like supposed to be a heist, right? And we like hardly ever see them planning the heist. And then the heist like happens, and the heist is like so short and like barely like is on page. And then like it was just so not good. I'm really sorry to this author. I wanted to love it so badly, and I think I will give actually Hafsa Faisal another try because she has the We Hunt the Flame duology, I think it is, and I've heard great things about that series, so I think I'm still gonna like give that a shot. But like, this one was just literally so disappointing. It was so YA, like to a fault. It was like cliche, lovesick puppies. The main character was supposed to be like this badass, and like I hardly saw any of that, and it was literally just like hot people and like maybe a heist here and there, but like the heist wasn't even important. I don't know. It was not good. It was so bad. Yeah. That one hurt me a little because I really wanted to love it. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. I wanted to love this one so badly also, and I think like it had a good setup. I don't know what it was about the plot, but I really did not connect to it at all, and I feel like I liked the characters well enough. I just don't know if I was expecting more. Like, I had heard such good things about it that maybe my expectations were just a little bit too high. This is one that I think I might reread like in a couple years, maybe like try it again, because I feel like I could like it if I'm in the right headspace, but I don't know. When I read it this year, it just didn't click for me, and there's nothing like inherently wrong about it. It just kind of felt slow, and the plot, like I feel like a lot happened at the beginning, and then there was like nothing, and then there was like a lot at the end, and it felt like things happened to the characters, but it didn't really feel like they were like participating, I guess, in a way. I don't know. I gave it 2 stars because it was just like not like special like in any way, shape, or form, like, but it was like it wasn't written poorly. Like the pace was kind of all over the place, I guess, but like the characters were fine. I don't know. It's definitely one that I might revisit in the future, but as of right now, where it stands, it is one of the worst books I read this year. I'm so sorry if it's your favorite. Don't come for me. The next book I'm going to talk about I had gotten as an ARC on NetGalley, and that is The Northwind. I literally can't remember the author's name. It's on the screen with the cover here. This one was supposed to be like comparable to ACOTAR. Like, the main character lives in a small village. They're like kind of poor. Her and her sister are poor, and the Winter King comes to their village in like search of a wife. He's gonna take her sister. She takes her sister's place, like unbeknownst to them, like sneakily, and then they fall in love, and like it's just the main character. I described her in the vlog that I read this book. I described her as the alcoholic. I'm not like other girls, because she was like, I'm such an alcoholic. Alcohol's all I think about. Oh my god. Every time I have dinner, I have to have a glass of wine. And it was just like, she thought about being an alcoholic more than she was actually an alcoholic. And then by the end of the book, it's like she goes from being this like annoying, self-proclaimed I'm an alcoholic to like, by the end of the book, it's like they're like, you know, it's a romance. Like, you get it. It's a romance. I'm gonna spoil a little bit. But by the end of the book, it's like, my life has changed and I'll never drink again, and I love my husband, and blah, 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 and blah, blah. And like, by the end of the book, like, she's already pregnant with baby number 2. And I'm like, what? Like, what? Like, it made no sense. It was so stupid, because we see the characters meeting and they hate each other, and I feel like the guy had potential, because like we kind of see him slowly like reveal bits and pieces of his past. Like, he had a little bit of potential, but like I feel like the main character didn't change at all. She was the same from start to end, but then all of a sudden at the end, she's like, I'm in love with you and I want to change my ways. And it's like, but we don't see you go through any growth. And then there's this epilogue that's like a year later, and she's like, she's already got a baby and she's pregnant again. And I'm like, the fuck? That makes no sense. Also, the writing was just really corny. I thought it was like really badly written, in the sense of like the dialogue felt like corny. The prose was like nothing special. There were some side plots that like didn't make any sense and were never explained. And then yeah, there's a character with like memory loss who's literally just there as like a plot device. Like, she's there when they need her, and then when they don't need her, she just like doesn't exist. It was so fucking stupid. My husband's home. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Salt Grows Heavy. This is another one where I feel like this is a me problem, because I did really like this author's other book, Nothing But Blackened Teeth, and a lot of people didn't like that one, and a lot of people love The Salt Grows Heavy, but I am in the camp of not liking The Salt Grows Heavy. Honestly, I just feel like it was a little too abstract for my taste personally, and I do wish that it was longer, but other than that, like, it was fine. I put it on my worst because I personally gave it a 2 stars. I think it needed to be longer. I think it needed to be a little less abstract, and there was like a romance in here that kind of made no sense. I think if it was longer and we had gotten to elaborate on that, like, the book could have been so much better, and it just wasn't. So for that reason, this is on my worst books. But it, like, again, out of all of these books that I'm talking about, like, it's not really the worst, you know, of the worst. It's like middle of the road as far as the worst books go. The next book I'm going to talk about is, just waiting for you guys to be quiet.
Charmy for the party rocking.
Why are you annoying? I love you too. Ow, hit me in the knee.
Did it actually get you?
Hit me in the knee.
But it's not an arrow.
Go away.
Yeah, you see me now.
I do see you. I've been avoiding you. Go away. Shut the fuck up. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Queens of Innislear. This book was literally so boring. It's hard because I feel like it had beautiful writing and I wanted to love it so badly, but like literally the plot was so fucking dumb and so boring. We follow these 3 sisters whose dad, like, they think maybe he killed their mom, and he's kind of like going fucking crazy, and they're like vying for power, I guess, like when he, like, for succession after he dies, I guess. And like literally the 3 sisters are just like stereotypical archetypes. Like, the youngest one is the baby and she can do no wrong, and the middle one is like kind of stubborn but like always does what the older one says, and the older one is like a super like bitch and just like hates everybody. And it's like, they're such archetypes, and like they weren't even done well. And like, honestly, I don't know, the plots were just really stupid in my opinion, and I really don't have much more to say about it because it's so forgettable that I genuinely don't even remember what happened. But this one was like so disappointing, terrible. Why was it 500 pages of nothing? Like, it literally just needed to be like 250 pages and call it a day. It was so bad and it was so boring. The next book I'm going to talk about is Our Last Echoes by Kate Alice Marshall. I wanted to love this book so bad because I thought it was going to be like creepy and scary and like ghostly, and unfortunately just did not really deliver like extent that I was hoping for. It kind of had more of a sci-fi creepy horror to it, but like, I don't know, I really couldn't connect to a single one of the characters. I felt like the book was way too long. I feel like we find out like what the like scary element is like too soon. Like, we don't get enough time to like be scared and like let it haunt us and let it be this like menacing thing in the background. Like, we find out what it is like 40% in, and then like it's kind of like coexisting with the plot. It's kind of like coexisting with the characters, and then it's like way too long until the book resolves after that. I was just like, let's be done. Like, I'm bored. I want to move on. Like, fucking get the show on the road. And again, like, I was so bored that I can't remember much other than what I've already said. And it was just like terribly disappointing because I had heard great things about the author. I thought this book might be really fun and scary for like September, October time. And it just like wasn't. It was just a big, like it was like a wet fart. Like, what a letdown. This was just such a letdown. The second to last book I'm going to talk about is Ice Planet Barbarians. I have an entire video dedicated to this book, so I will link it in the card and down below for you in the description if you want to watch it. But this one like tricked me for a little bit. Like, it tricked me into thinking I was gonna like it. It was kind of funny, it was kind of silly goofy, but then all of a sudden like it wasn't, and I realized that it was actually like supposed to be serious the whole time, and I was just the one making it like funny, silly, goofy. And yeah, I thought that it was a joke. I thought it was like a comedy. It's not. It wasn't a comedy. It wasn't a joke, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it was very serious. There's an aliens member that is shaped like a rabbit vibrator. That was interesting. There's a lot of plot conveniences, and it had my least favorite trope, which is pregnancy trope. So yeah, this is like one of the worst books I've ever read in my life, and I'll never get those hours of my life back, unfortunately. But now at least I can say I've read it and I will never read another one in that series, and I want to move on and forget it ever happened. And the worst book that I read in 2024 is a very, very short story called Santa's Sack. And this is Santa and Oogie Boogie fan fiction. So basically, it's like The Nightmare Before Christmas a couple years later, I think, or the next year. And Santa is like having fantasies about Oogie Boogie because he has a degradation kink. And it's exactly as grotesque as you think it is, because Oogie Boogie is a literal burlap sack. Like, he is literally, he doesn't even have hands. His thing is like inside of a flap. You have to like open the flap to get the thing out, and it was just like so strange and not at all good. The author also kept calling Santa's member a lolly, COCK, like multiple times. They called Santa's like belly, because obviously Santa is like, you know, he's got a dad bod. He's got a belly. They kept calling it his bowl full of jelly. And I'm like, oh, how many times you're gonna say that? There were a lot of like Christmas puns for body parts, like Santa's ornaments, Santa's sack. Santa's sack was described as ornaments. At one point, his secretion was sparkly, and after today, I never want to think about this book again. I never want to think about this again. I'm going to get 2 bottle brushes and scrub my eyeballs clean and pretend I never saw those words on the page. Here's hoping that 2025 is a better reading year for me personally. I hope next year my worst books of the year is like 3 books. I really just don't want to have bad books under my belt for next year. If I'm not liking something, I'm going to DNF it. So maybe next year at this time, I'll just do like all of the books I DNF'd and call it a day. And hopefully I don't have to sit here with emotional damage from reading Oogie Boogie and Santa fan fiction. If you've made it this far in the video, please leave me the trash can emoji down in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!